Hello everybody and welcome back to LRN, the home of F1 news, rumours and fan opinion. Today we react to the news that Sauber and Audi have signed an agreement starting from the 2026 season. Obviously Alfa Romeo and Sauber separating from the end of 2023. Sauber will continue to run Ferrari engines for 2024 and 2025. And then they will look to join fully with Audi from 2026, the first full partnership they will have with an engine manufacturer since BMW. And obviously we know BMW Sauber was pretty successful. They were a race running team, to be fair, only once, but they were certainly more successful than Sauber have been in the years since then. So we're going to talk about what this means for Sauber, what the potential for this partnership is, what it means for Audi moving forward. Will they end up obviously delivering engines to other teams as well, or will they look to sort of hook into Sauber, make that relationship work, and make a name for themselves in the sport by working just with Sauber and focus on that relationship. We'll also at the end we'll go through comments from multiple people from Sauber, Stefano Domenicali, and from Audi as well, in terms of their views of this partnership and what it will mean for them going forward. And at the end, we'll also do the latest update on the cost cap, because there have been developments. We do think we know what the punishment's going to be. So definitely stick around till the end to find out what the news is on the cost cap, as we wait for the official announcement in the next couple of days. But make sure you stick around to the end. If you are new around here though, please make sure to subscribe on the bottom right hand side and hit a like on the video if you do enjoy it. But we'll get straight into it then, just to go through exactly what it is that's happening. So Sauber, as I said, will continue to run with Ferrari supplying their engines in 24 and 25, with Audi taking over the following year. And Audi also planning to acquire a stake in the Sauber group. So real big commitment there from Audi, that they're going to really invest into Sauber and make it a true partnership. Obviously, a part acquisition is pretty huge, and it says a lot about how much Audi want this partnership with Sauber to work, and obviously they want to be a success in F1. They're coming in because of the regulation changes, so we're going to look at examples of other times teams have come in and done that and it's been successful. Obviously Mercedes jumping out as the obvious example. But anyway, the partnership between Audi and Sauber Motor. So this is a comment here from Frederick Vasseur, the managing director of Sauber Motorsport. He said the partnership between Audi AG and Sauber Motorsport is a key step for our team as we continue to make progress towards the front of the grid. So big words. They are still ambitious, Sauber. They want to figure out a strategy that's going to get them to the front of F1. Do you think that Audi are that step? Are they going to be the entity that takes Sauber to the front of F1, fighting for race wins, or at least to the success that they had with BMW Sauber? Let me know in the comments below. He went on to say, to become Audi's official works team is not only an honour and a great responsibility, it's the best option for the future, and we are fully confident we can help Audi achieve the objectives that they have set for their journey in Formula 1. So they are a fully fledged works team, Sauber Audi, so no intent from Audi at the moment to sign any agreement with any other teams. They have, of course, registered an engine manufacturer, so other teams can, of course, express interest in hiring Audi to produce their engines. I would suspect, though, they will want to see how successful this partnership is between Sauber and Audi before other teams will be coming in going, you know what, we want to get rid of Mercedes, Ferrari, Renault, Red Bull, potentially. Obviously Red Bull only currently supplying engines to themselves and AlphaTauri, but with them as well, other teams could start to take engines. So we're getting a wider breadth of engine suppliers in Formula 1, which I think is good. It adds competition. It adds, we saw when Honda joined Formula 1, it did add something. I think obviously McLaren suffered there, and that's another example of a new manufacturer. Obviously we know Honda have been around in the past, but at that time, a new engine manufacturer coming into the sport and really struggling to get to grips with everything, having those issues at the beginning with McLaren, and it wasn't until they joined up with Red Bull where everything sort of clicked together. Now, to be fair, fingers were being pointed at McLaren as to why actually that they were the reason, that it wasn't the Honda engine, it was McLaren. And the fact that McLaren have still continued to struggle since then does give some weight to the suggestion that McLaren were largely at fault for the failed relationship between themselves and Honda. So certainly, if that's the case, Sauber could definitely have a more prosperous relationship with Audi than McLaren had with Honda, and they could look at the Honda Red Bull relationship as something as more promising. But of course, by then Honda had a few years in the sport and were further down the line, so it's hard to know exactly where Audi are going to fit in with their engine when they join. But I have to say, I am getting bigger vibes of Mercedes. Now, obviously, Mercedes, when you remember them coming into the sport, again, when they came back, and obviously they had the team of Schumacher and Rosberg as they were setting up, but everybody knew that they were back for the regulation changes, for the turbo hybrid era. And of course, no one knew how dominant they were going to be through that time period. But that is what they were aiming for. And everyone knew they were going to be successful, that they were going to, we had that feeling that they were, the rumors were that they were going to absolutely nail the regulations. Obviously, with the weight and backing of Mercedes, we know how good and how effective. Obviously, we've had it proven since then just how good they are. So this kind of, to me, we're not quite getting the same murmurs yet, but of course we are still a few years away from Audi Sauber becoming an entity on the grid. So I wouldn't be surprised if, as we get closer, there becomes these stronger rumors and suggestions that Audi are really going to nail these new engine regulations. Now, they're not a huge way away from the current regs, but they do massively reduce emissions, reduce, in terms of the amount of fuel that they use, their efficiency is massively increased. So this is why Audi are getting involved, because the efficiency of those engines are changing, the regulations are changing so that it is greener, and that's certainly, of course, good for the sport, good for the sport's ongoing existence. And to see Audi come into the sport, such a big name, is of course a positive. But I think we could see that actually they come in flying. Now, that isn't a guarantee, of course, but given the size of the brand and the backing that they have, it would be really surprising to me if they struggled, if they had the same teething issues that Honda did when they came back. I think Audi have a clear plan, and I do think they're going to be successful when they come back into the sport. But if you agree with me, let me know in the comments below. Or if you don't, definitely let me know why and how you think things are going to go for Sauber, how many years you think it will take for them, if at all, to get towards the front of the grid. Now, their sort of immediate expectation is they want to be at the top of the midfield, and I think they can do that. I think we've seen enough teams have enough issues, and other teams will be focused on those seasons up until 2026, until those regulation changes, still producing engines, whereas Audi can just fully focus on that 2026 season and beyond. So they do have the advantage of not having to worry about current engines, current manufacturing processes, and improving their existing plant over focusing on the one that's coming later on. So they do have a massive advantage there if they can get it right. That actually they could get a massive step forward and leap in front of others who obviously haven't been able to give as much time to producing the engine that meets the 2026 regulations. So that's certainly an interesting one. Definitely something to look out for. But as I say, it all kind of leans into the fact that Audi will make a success of this. But again, if you disagree, let me know in the comments below. So then we've also got comments from Audi, who've said, so their board member, Oliver Hoffman, we are delighted to have gained such an experienced and competent partner for ambitious Formula One projects. So sweet, succinct comment there from Audi. As I say, I think it's all positive. I think they were maybe the number one choice, Audi, to come in with Sauber, potentially, because obviously Sauber have got a history of good partnerships with other entities in the world of F1, and I think this is potentially a really, really strong partnership, especially as we say with Audi potentially acquiring stake in Sauber team. They could become a really strong works outfit, and we could see Audi actually not produce engine for any other teams. We could see it like Honda, where they've come back and they have just stuck with one team at a time. I know obviously they're doing two at the moment, but they are both Red Bull, so I don't count that as them actually supplying engines to anyone else. It is just Red Bull to me. So I think Audi could just remain with Sauber as long as that project is successful, and maybe if they move on to supply to another team, it will do like Honda did, where they've gone from McLaren to Red Bull. They haven't gone and started just supplying engines to multiple teams like Mercedes, like Ferrari. So again, we'll find out more over the years once they come into the sport. But for me, they're going to stay a works team with Sauber for the foreseeable future, and for me, a successful one at that. Stefano Domenicali also coming out with comments saying it is great news to hear that Audi will have a partnership with Sauber for their entry into Formula One in 2026. The combination of those two names is a very exciting prospect for our sport. It highlights the strong momentum that Formula One has and the belief in our strategy to further grow and enhance the sport while delivering on our sustainability plans to be net zero carbon by 2030 with advanced sustainable fuels in the car in 2026. So as I say, the engines are changing to be more sustainable. They're also changing the fuels that are being used so that less fuel is used, and of course it is more sustainable ecologically as well. So certainly massive news that Sauber and Audi are going to be forming this partnership from 2026. I think, as I say, summary, I think it's going to be a success. Whether or not that means that they are winning races is a different question, right? We're talking about a Sauber team that have struggled midfield to the back for a while now. So even if they don't come in and they're not competing with Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, and whoever else joins them at the front in the years in between now and then, even if they are just head of the midfield, looking at 4th, 5th in the constructors as a start, that's still a fantastic improvement from where they've been. So definitely for me, going to improve on where they are. And as I say, given the jump that Audi are going to have in terms of development time to focus on this 2026 power plant versus the other teams, I would not be surprised. I don't think they'll have the Mercedes level of dominance where they're going to come in and suddenly just dominate for 7 years. I think it's unlikely for another team to come in and do that. It does seem like a once in a lifetime kind of event, but there's nothing to say they can't. But I do think they're going to compete. I do think they're going to be in the conversation. And, we could see Sauber once again winning races, or race in the sense of BMW, but at least be up there, be qualifying near the front, be challenging for race wins. And as I say, that may not lead to world titles, but it's certainly going to be a massive jump up from where they are at the moment and the relationship that they've had with Ferrari. Because remember, they can go with Sauber, they can fully design their car around this power plant that's going to be produced in 2026. They can essentially go, look, we're not going to achieve much realistically in the next 3 years. So they can just start. If they'll be fully on board with Audi, they'll know what's being produced, they'll know what the dimensions of that, and they can start looking at that 2026 car with those 2026 regulations and really start working on that way ahead of time and putting their money, steadily more and more towards that 2026 season. And I would not be surprised to see Sauber come out absolutely flying, or Audi Sauber, however it's going to be named at the time, to come out flying in that 2026 season and really challenging at the front. So really excited for that. Anytime we get a new team or a team like a works team, which we genuinely believe could be challenging and making Formula One more competitive, is great news for the sport. As I say, chuck them in there with Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes. I think they will add to that mix. I think Audi will want to be in that mix. They don't want to be at the back, and a lot of focus is going to go towards that 2026 regulation change and what they can do to make sure they are at the front or near the front of the grid. And I don't think they're going to be a long way away. But as I say, make sure to let me know what you think in the comments below. But now then, we'll move on to the cost cap update. Because we do think we know what that is going to be. We've had reports coming out, and of course we've had Christian Horner come out and basically say that they've had positive, strong conversations with the FIA. They're happy with the way those conversations have gone, and that does suggest that the punishment is going to be minimal. The suggestion is that we're going to see a fine. Don't know what that will be yet. I can't give you a number, but it's going to be a fine and a restriction to wind tunnel or testing time, and that's it. That's all it's going to be. And you've got to remember that the restriction to testing time might not be a massive impact to them because they've already benefited from it, from the overspend from before. it's not really going to impact them unless it's massive, right? The fine could be astronomical, but it won't be. And the restrictions to testing could be huge. They might not get any, but it won't be, right? It's going to be, as far as, if you're logically guessing, minimal. And I think that's really disappointing, but it won't be the end of it. This is the thing to keep an eye out for. When this is announced, it's not just whether or not Red Bull agree. It's going to be what the repercussions are long term, whether the other teams agree, and what impact that has with them then getting upset with the FIA, getting upset with the regulations, whether they then choose to ignore these regulations, knowing that they can overspend, and then essentially, whatever they do, what they achieve above that. If they finish higher up the grid, if what they're going to get in excess earnings because of their prize money, sponsorship money, by performing better, if that outweighs whatever the fine's going to be, why wouldn't they do it? Why wouldn't they do it? Because it is a guaranteed performance gain to overspend on the cost cap with minimal repercussions. And the other side of it is the FIA could turn around and go, well, look, the punishments weren't clearly structured enough, so in this occasion it's going to be minimal, but next time this is what it's going to be. That will kick off as well, because then you're going to have teams say, wait, so the only team that will ever be able to benefit from this situation is Red Bull. And if we do the same thing, we're going to get punished way worse than they will. But they've already benefited, not just from last season where they won the Drivers' Championship, not just this season where they've won the Constructors and the Drivers' Championship, but they're going to continue to benefit into the next season as well. But if we do something, we're going to get potentially not much benefit, but also be punished way harder. And all of this is going to open a massive can of worms that I don't think the FIA are going to know how to deal with. We've seen other team owners come out and say that they want strong punishments. We've seen people from the world of F1 saying there needs to be a strong punishment because they need to prevent this uprising from the other F1 teams of going, well, look, if they're not going to be punished, if they aren't going to be held to account, neither will we. And when you come for us, we'll see what happens, because essentially we're going to ignore your rules because you've shown us that they don't mean anything. And then it all falls apart, right? It all falls apart. And the suggestion is, at the moment, the punishment's not going to be something the other teams are going to be happy about. So how this plays out, it won't change anything for Red Bull. Red Bull will keep their championships. Red Bull won't be disqualified from anything, and they'll continue to benefit from the overspend that they had, right? So that's the situation Red Bull are in, and no surprise then that they're happy how those conversations with the FIA have gone, with essentially the biggest punishment seems to be the fact they've got to admit they overspent, which is ridiculous. But that seems to be the situation that we're in. So very much looking forward to seeing not just the result of this, but the repercussions, the response, the reaction from the other teams. And it may not change the outcome, but it still will be exciting to see how other teams sort of react to this, and then what the repercussions of that are moving forward, how the cost cap rules change, how that then causes yet another repercussion and another response from the F1 teams as they look to essentially gain the same benefit Red Bull have by overspending within the minimum, or the small threshold, the less than £5.7 million, 7 point whatever it was million dollars. If they are within that threshold, they're going to go spend it because they know the punishment's minimal. So the cost cap's going to become redundant unless I'm wrong. I would suggest it needs to still be a significant fine and a significant impact to testing so that other teams can be guaranteed to catch up to what Red Bull gained. Otherwise, there's going to be massive controversy and massive arguments and going on in the background in the world of F1, which I hope doesn't happen, because obviously I want everything to be fair, just, and everyone to, if a one team's cheated, they need to be the repercussions need to be big enough to prevent other teams doing the same thing. And I want that to happen. I want the teams to adhere to the rules and regulations and everyone to be on an even playing field as close as possible. We all know things don't quite work like that in Formula One. But to have a team that's already so successful be more successful because they've overspent and on the rules, as we know, we've been through it. It doesn't seem right to me. But that's the latest update anyway. That's sort of what we're expecting to happen or to be announced over the next few days. And then, of course, the reaction following that. And we look forward to it. And when those things do happen, we'll be here and we'll be reporting on it, and I'll be discussing it and reacting to it with you. So make sure you are subscribed to the channel on the bottom right hand side. Make sure you do hit that bell icon to be notified of all future uploads. Otherwise, just going to thank you so much for watching today. Make sure to hit a like on the video. Hope you have a great day. Goodbye.